Good evening, and welcome to State of Aging, a community conversation. I'm Estrelita Harmon, Executive Director of Center for Better Aging, along with Dr. Shante Hawley, noted mental health coach and host of the Whole and Complete podcast. Tonight, we're bringing together experts, advocates, caregivers, and older adults to talk honestly about what it means to age in Chicago today, the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the opportunities for healthier, more connected lives.
How do we stay mentally and physically strong as we age? How do we access the services that help us thrive? And what can our community do to make aging something we embrace, not fear? Many of you in this room are aging on the south side of Chicago, raising families here, caring for loved ones here, and building lives here.
Joining us tonight is an incredible panel of leaders working on the front lines of aging, wellness, and community care.
Michelle Hirsch is the Chief Planning Officer for the Illinois Multi-Sector Plan for Aging in the Illinois Department of Aging. She led the development and is now leading the implementation of Engaging Illinois, the state's multi-sector plan, a 10-year comprehensive blueprint with long-term strategies to reshape infrastructure, services, and public policy for the growing number of older Illinoisans and their caregivers. Delia Javier is the Region 9 leader and the Illinois chapter executive of the Alzheimer's Association, the global leader in Alzheimer's and dementia care. Since joining the Illinois chapter in 2020, Delia has been instrumental in elevating the visibility and reach of the organization in the Chicagoland community. Margaret LaRiviere is the Chief Planning Analyst for the City of Chicago, a position in which she is responsible for providing strategic planning analysis and support to city departments on a range of urban policy, planning, and community development initiatives. She works within city government to coordinate analytical planning work that supports municipal decision-making and policy development.
Dr. Daria Brooks-Terrell is an orthopedic surgeon currently practicing at St. Bernard Hospital, where she is also the Executive Medical Director of the Center for Better Aging and the Medical Director of Clinical Programming and Health Outcomes. Dr. Terrence Wallace is a clinician entrepreneur working at the intersection of business, technology, and healthy aging. A board-certified specialist in geriatric physical therapy, Dr. Wallace is the founder and CEO of Smile Fitness RX, an AI-powered fall prevention and fitness platform for older adults 50+. Tonight's conversation is about what aging looks like here in our community. Let's get started together. Let's start with the most visible part of aging, our bodies, how they move, how they change, and what helps us stay independent longer. All right, so we are going to begin today's conversation focused on physical health and wellness. So starting with Dr. Terrell, I'm interested, when we look at the aging, the landscape of aging on Chicago's South Side today, what physical changes most affect older adults' ability to stay independent?
Thank you for letting me start the conversation. I would say probably the biggest thing is degeneration. Degeneration of our joints and muscles affects our mobility, which is probably the biggest physical change that most people notice. So when we have arthritis and when we have muscle and tendon injuries and inflammation, it's harder for us to move. So I think being able to do the things that you're normally used to doing, if that's going up and down the stairs in your home, thinking about this home that I've lived in for the last sometimes 40 years that has my bedroom upstairs, and now it's harder for me to get up the stairs. When we start to have mobility changes, that impacts how we live every day. The other changes I think that really impact us all as we age is hearing. We don't think a lot about how impactful hearing loss is. We are seeing more and more data that tells us the impact of hearing loss. It contributes to falls, it contributes to dementia, it impacts your balance. And it's one of those things that is, in the past, has not gotten a lot of attention, but we're starting to look more and talk more about why hearing is important. The other one is our vision. Vision is huge. I think we all notice when we can't see, But as we age, we all have changes in our vision. It affects our balance. Obviously, it can increase our fall risk. And also, it just makes everything hard, all of your everyday activities harder. So reading, if you like to do crossword puzzles, if you're looking at the TV, all of those things are impacted by your vision. Different conditions that are more common as we age, like getting hip fractures, unfortunately, also impact our ability to stay independent. And we also know that if you've been one of those that sustain a hip fracture, there is direct correlation to your ability to remain living in your home independently.
And I'd love to hear your take, Margaret, as you work on behalf of the city to care for all of Chicago's older adults. What's your understanding of kind of what we're looking at in Chicago's South Side for what physical changes must affect health and well-being and their ability to stay independent?
I think the first response was awesome because she covered a range of things in terms of how our body changes as we grow older. I think a lot of times when people think of aging and preparing for aging, they're thinking financially, right? Making sure that I have the right resources in place. Well, the things in which she was talking about, arthritis and mobility issues, fitness, exercise, doing those things now, and doing those things at any age will help address some of those issues in which that she was talking about. Walking. We now know the benefits of walking. I know some people are intimidated by jogging. I've never jogged before, but you can start by walking in terms of getting that exercise, that stress release, because there are so many factors that impact us as we age.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I like that, we're hearing that it's not necessarily about motivation, right? Caring for our well-being and our physical health isn't just about deciding one day to do it, but sometimes that's also about access. And so I'd love to pose the question of how can we make fitness and nutrition accessible to older adults with limited income or mobility? And I'd like to actually start with you, Michelle, especially as you're now leaning into this momentum that we've built with actually launching the state's multi-sector plan on aging. What are your thoughts about accessibility to these types of resources?
Well, thank you for mentioning, first, thank you for being here. I'm thrilled to be with this group of individuals and experts talking about aging. I think this is great that we're having these conversations, first of all. As you mentioned, Engaging Illinois, the state's multi-sector plan for aging, has just launched on January 15th, and it looks at the holistic the whole person in the context of their lives. It isn't just about one aspect or another, and that's hard. It's because we've got a system that's set up that's funded and through silos of funding. And so now we're trying to bridge all of those silos so we can look across sectors. And so if we're looking to engage socially, for example, one of the 4 focus areas for Engaging Illinois is called Creating Livable Connected Communities. And so looking to identify just places within the community that you can get some physical activity, that you can access opportunities. And it doesn't have to be fancy, and it doesn't have to be something that's high tech. It's just the ability to get out and get engaged. We found that you get 7.5 years of good, healthy life when you're socially engaged, and you can do that through accessing all sorts of opportunities.
And can I just share some of those? So the beauty of Chicago, we have our Chicago Park Districts. We have the Cook County Forest Preserves. And we have, as DFSS Senior Services, we have 21 senior centers that you can go to for recreation, for fitness, for walking. And so there are many opportunities once it gets warmer with respect to, outdoors. But the ability to have accessible and free spaces in which you can walk and fitness and socially engage is very important.
Thank you. And I'd like to make sure that we, health and wellness are broad questions, right? How do we navigate that whole span of services and things that we need? But I want to make sure that we leave our viewers and our audience with tangible things that they can do today. So what's one small change an older adult can make this month to make a difference in their physical health? And I want to start with you, Delia.
They can move. They can move. And I know we're talking about wellness and physical activity, and oftentimes it may seem to be such a complicated thing to do, but really just a small step, whether it's within their home, if they have not been used to moving, just getting up so many steps a day can make a difference in the lives of our older adults. And right within their home, right within their living room, right from their couch, it's getting up and moving their arms or walking a few steps from the couch to the door. Just simple things that they can do right away today is a way to start.
And I love that you ended on the topic of mobility. We have a geriatric physical therapist on the panel. Any one tip that you'd like to provide?
Yeah, I'll build on that point that you mentioned about the simple things that you can do inside of the home, because I do feel like there's a huge opportunity to do small activities within your home. So I did home health physical therapy for a number of years across the South Side, and when I would go to patients' homes, one of the things that I noticed is almost always people were watching TV, Jeopardy, Price is Right, whatever it is. And I think one small thing that people can do is just small exercise during commercial breaks. So if you're watching TV for 4 or 5, 6 hours a day, when a commercial break comes on, spend 20 seconds or 30 seconds just marching in place or standing up, sitting down. That's a really small step that you can take, and it really goes a long way in terms of improving your mobility. But one other thing that I would say is outside of the home is, when you go out to the grocery store or any other place, maybe try not to park as close to the door as you typically do. That doesn't mean you have to be all the way down and as far as you can go, but maybe park a little bit farther away so it kind of forces you to walk a little further. So those are two things. One, inside the house is just exercising during commercial breaks, and then, when you go out, park a little further, and it forces you to walk more.
Excellent tips. Thank you so much. And we will move on to our next segment.
One of the most overlooked parts of aging is mental health. Many older adults experience loneliness, depression, or anxiety, and too often these feelings go unspoken. So as we know, aging is not just a physical process. There is a mental and an emotional component as well. And so let's get into that. How is mental and emotional health showing up for older adults today? And what are you seeing most often in your work? Delia, let's start with you.
So for instance, I'm with the Alzheimer's Association, and one of the things that we teach on is the fact that mental health or depression could actually be a sign that an older adult could be dealing with something a little bit more serious, so they could be dementia. So if they are experiencing signs and symptoms of what could be Alzheimer's disease, what they may tend to do is withdraw from their loved ones. And if it was someone that used to be social or very engaging with their peers or with their loved ones, and now all of a sudden they might not be remembering names, and so they may tend to withdraw. And so the first sign and symptom that may be experienced could be mistaken for depression or a sign of mental illness that could potentially lead to a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. So that's one of the things that we try to talk about when we're talking about mental illness or depression or things of that nature.
Okay. And what are you seeing, Margaret?
Yeah, and I will share, as we age, things change, right? Your relationships with people change. If you have children, they grow up, they move away. People who don't have children, if they have a loved one, that loved one maybe has passed away. And so sometimes these changes can make you feel down, and you may feel depressed, and you may feel like you're the only one that's going through that. So again, we have 21 senior centers, And one of the main things that we're looking at is addressing loneliness and social isolation. It's not easy making new friends when you're older, but at our 21 senior centers, we say that's a place where everybody knows your name, you're invited to come, and it's a place where people are looking to connect. And so what I'd like to say and encourage is that if you're at home, if you're experiencing changes, getting outside of the house, going to places where you feel safe and comfortable and familiar, I think those things help you to feel connected to others and not so alone.
Thank you so much for that. And that is a perfect lead into our next question, because you're talking about all of these new changes. So what changes should families be paying attention to that might signal emotional distress, not just having a bad day, but something that's a little bit deeper? So Michelle, what are you seeing in your work?
You know, I think the most important thing, going back to this again, is social connection. Is if somebody seems withdrawn, if they're experiencing loneliness, if they're not showing up for the things that they normally would like to do, it's really important to ask the question, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And I think it's really important for caregivers as well, not just older folks, but there are so many people who are doing caregiving now, and so many people don't even recognize that they're a caregiver. They think, oh, I'm just taking care of my dad or my mom or my neighbor. And so it's so important to recognize caregivers themselves are also experiencing burnout and anxiety and depression. And so I think really just asking the question and interacting, providing those opportunities for interaction is absolutely key.
I think that's a wonderful point, is that caregiving is not just making sure you got your medication and not making sure you got your food, but also checking in with that emotional piece. Daria, tell us, what are you seeing? What should you be looking for?
Another thing I would add that families should look out for is vague answers and vague replies. Oftentimes, especially in the beginnings of memory loss and dementia, people are aware of what they don't know, but they don't know how to express it. So you ask them a question, oh, you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm thinking, I don't even have to say it. Or you know where it is, but that's them trying to cover up what they don't know. So just try to be mindful of things, especially when there's intentionality around not answering questions.
Thank you so much for that. Terrence, so because people are trying to do things like cover up and aren't ready to admit that there might be a little bit of decline, how should people start having those conversations with family members that there might be some sort of mental or cognitive decline happening?
Yeah, I think a key thing in that perspective is really having a conversation where you seek to understand as opposed to just seeking to solve the problem. I think that's something that all of us can benefit from.
Yes.
And I've learned at any age, but especially when you're dealing with an older adult or someone who has more wisdom, they've experienced more life than you have. And so, you know, as a caregiver or a family member who may be younger, to come into a situation where you're really trying to solve all of their problems, but you don't have the wisdom that they have. You don't have the life experiences that they have. So I think a good way to approach that is to seek to understand as opposed to just seeking to solve their issues off the bat.
And also in a post-COVID environment, and COVID was not that long ago. I mean, it was, 6 years ago now. You're also dealing with things like long COVID, which has brought up mental health issues as a result of long COVID. And so I think we need to go back to really caring about each other. I think with COVID and we've isolated ourselves, and we're kind of slow to getting back to talking to each other and recognizing when there's something going on. We're used to that whole virtual Zoom environment now, and I think we need to start just really paying attention to what's going on with our neighbors and with our peers and our older adults. And it means actually caring, paying attention, asking questions, and really being concerned.
And if I can just add on,
Please.
being like a partner in problem solving, that individual knows and understands that they're going through challenges, and they don't like it. You know, there are things that you used to be able to do that you're no longer able to do, and as a family member, you recognize that, and you want to say, okay, we know things are different. You know, what are some of the things that maybe you can't do it this way, but what are the other things that you can do?
Yeah.
So acknowledging that the changes are there, and I agree, listening and not trying to fix it, but trying to say, okay, what are the strategies that we can come up with? Maybe that's better.
That is a perfect segue to our last question. So, what are some of the supports that are in place that can help reduce isolation and protect the mental well-being of our loved ones as they age? So, Daria.
I think the intentionality around making sure that we're including caregivers, we're including family members so that we can help identify some of the needs that our older family members are, some of their needs and what we need to help them with is something that we haven't had in the past that I think is helping, that we are bringing attention to that. Also, looking at what forms that is not just family, but if, especially for some older people, if their families have moved away, like you mentioned, what we start to embrace different ideas of family. So the church, the people that live in your building, the god kids, the nephew of someone else. So just being intentional about making sure that there's connection, because I think, again, we've mentioned it, but whatever we can do to minimize the social isolation is key.
No, thank you so much for that. What I'm hearing is that this is a community effort, that it takes more than just immediate family, but also expanding what that definition of family looks like and including them into that conversation of support. Well, thank you guys so much. Resources exist, but many people don't know how to access them. Let's highlight a few that can make a real difference.
Navigating healthcare systems can be complicated at any age, but especially for older adults. Panelists, let's talk about what people need to know and how to cut through the red tape. So let's talk about healthcare navigation and access. The Center for Better Aging and our partners spend, probably thousands of hours in the community each year interacting with individuals, older adults, their families, and I could guess that the number one issue that we hear about is that the system is broken, right? That it's difficult to navigate, there's inefficiencies, it's confusing. So let's talk about that, right? So from your perspective, and I'd like any one of you to really just dive in here, how well are healthcare and benefit systems working for older adults today?
I'd love to jump in on that one. With the multi-sector plan, I think it's really a terrific approach. We're not just looking at one system that's supposed to answer all the questions for an individual in their lives. So California started the multi-sector plan approach, Massachusetts picked it up, and now we're kind of still in the early waves of these multi-sector plans. And what they do is bring together a whole of society, not just a whole of government, but it engages philanthropy and community-based organizations, healthcare systems, community, everyone who has a stake in an individual's life. Because I think the systems were designed through siloed funding. The funding streams. Well, people aren't like that. People are multidimensional. And so we now, as the systems and sectors that serve people, we need to come together. Mm-hmm. If the funding streams, ideally in the long run, maybe they will, and hopefully they will. But as the state of Illinois, for example, we're all coming together to say, how do we come together to help an individual in all of who they are?
I also think that, yes, the system is broken, and we're all experts, and we all have our own healthcare things that we have to navigate, and I can tell you, I find it complicated, and I'm in the system. And I meet people every day, as the Alzheimer's Association, who still to this day tell us that they have no idea what the Alzheimer's Association does. And I would like to believe that we have great resources and great information, but regular Joe Joe Smith that has their day-to-day things that they're involved in, they somehow do not have immediate accessibility or know-how to get to the information that you have available to them. And so all these resources, we need to figure out a way to get it to the streets, to get it so that regular person in the audience can say, yes, I'm aware of this. And we still too often run into people that are navigating this and have zero clue all the resources that are available to them. So how do we fix that is we need to find the answer to.
So that's actually a great segue. When we talk about resources, the Center for Better Aging, our mission is to get the resources to the community. And we're coming off of Medicare open enrollment period. If anyone's familiar with Medicare annual enrollment, it's complicated, confusing time of the year, right? And there's a study that shows that about 50% of Medicare beneficiaries have responded that they don't understand their benefits. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Medicare and Medicaid and the important part, which is coverage, right? And how confusing that can be. What are the most common misunderstandings about Medicare or Medicaid that create problems for older adults navigating the system?
I'd love to answer some of
Please,
these.
Dr. Terrell.
And I'll start with one of the things that I didn't realize. So navigating the healthcare system, I thought you turn 65, you automatically get Medicare. And it doesn't work that way. Are there others out there that think that way, that were wrong with me? So in order to qualify for Medicare, you have to have contributed to Medicare. So you have to have had a job that paid into Medicare, and you have to pay into it. If you get to 65 and you have not paid into it, you can pay into it, but oftentimes that amount that you will have to pay is substantial. So that's misnomer number one. The other is that it's not automatic. The government doesn't say, okay, Ms. Smith, you're 65, here's your red, white, and blue card. So when you turn 65, you still have to enroll. There's still an active process. And now there's what I call the Medicare soup, the alphabet soup. So Medicare Part A covers your hospital. Medicare Part B covers doctor's visits, physical therapy, labs, all that. Medicare Part C is the new Medicare Advantage plan, and Medicare Part D covers your prescriptions. So now that we have these Advantage plans, everybody's advertising zero premiums. But zero premiums does not mean that you won't pay anything. You still may have deductibles, you still may have co-pays. So I want people to understand that's another misconception. I think the other thing that a lot of times people don't understand, we think of Medicare and Medicaid as federal programs. And while they are, Medicaid especially is also state-run. And so, and especially with these new Medicare Advantage programs, we took federal programs and essentially privatized them. So we have federal programs that are now being run by private insurance companies. So what does that mean? You have to follow the rules of that insurance company. So they tell you what's in network, what needs approval, what needs authorization. So these are some of the things that I think we have to start being aware of with this new landscape of Medicare Advantage plans, because we're used to everybody saying, I've got the red, white, and blue card. And when you had the red, white, and blue card, you didn't have to ask permission as much as you have to ask now. So I think those are some of the biggest misconceptions that I hear, or the complaints that I hear as I see patients just understanding that there is that navigation. And on the other side, families having to deal with things that they thought would be covered for their older family members, and now they're finding out that you don't have Medicare, so some of these things are a little bit more challenging.
And what I want to share is there is help. So, we have SHIP counselors, and so these are volunteers who train and who are there to help talk you through this process, whether it's the older adult or whether it is the caregiver. But it is a very extremely complicated process. So reaching out for help is nothing to be embarrassed about, but it's something you should definitely take advantage of. Because it's very important to know what the plans cover, what the plans don't cover, especially with respect to your medications. There are savings that can be had, and depending on the medical challenge that you face, you want to make sure that you're getting that plan that fits your needs.
Can I jump in on that for 1 second? Because you hit on something really important. These AAAs, the Area Agencies on Aging, I don't think everybody knows that every single person in the state, every single older individual is covered by a AAA or an Area Agency on Aging, where you can get that SHIP information and information about a huge host of resources. And so I really think that they can't be the best kept secret anymore. We really need to make sure.
And they are the best kept secret.
Right.
So look up your AAA Area Agency on Aging. They
Right
are
here.
amazing. Okay, there you go.
We don't want to be a secret anymore.
It's amazing the amount of things that you guys provide, and I wasn't aware, and so.
Well, I think
I'll underscore that point too, because I do feel like the AAAs are an amazing source of information, and a lot of people have so much mistrust, and there's so many scams and that sort of thing. So it's hard to understand who to trust, who to talk to, who to ask the questions to. But if you can find your AAA, those are folks that know they can answer your questions and someone who you can trust. So I would definitely advise folks to look up your AAA.
And there's one thing you need to remember so you can access all of this. There's something called a senior helpline in Illinois. We're very fortunate to have a staffed senior helpline. So if you just look up Illinois Senior Helpline, that will get you to the right place, or go to the Illinois Department on Aging, look up the Senior Helpline, and that will connect you with more services than you could have ever imagined.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
And then if I can quickly share, an easy number to remember is 311. So you can call and say, I'm an older adult, I'd like to be connected to senior services. We serve as a AAA. Or I just want to know about what senior services and caregiver supports are out there.
All right, well, thank you. I think I didn't even need to ask any other questions. You all kept the resources flowing, and I like how we went from, there's a system that's dysfunctional and broken, to resources that do exist to help us navigate it. We just need to get the website links, right? And so we'll make sure that information is provided to you.
Aging isn't something we do alone. Community, real, meaningful connection plays a powerful role in how we age. So I want to build on this idea of community and involving community in the process and the logistics of aging. Because so many of us were raised with the idea, don't be a burden. I don't want to be a burden. So can you talk about what role does community play in facilitating healthy aging for our seniors?
So I think it plays a critical part in helping our seniors. And as an example, one of the things that our organization does is provide a conference, actually, that happened right here last year, for this community, the Southside community. And at that conference, we have had 30 plus vendors of resources that are available, and this is open to the public and it's free to the public. So everything that we do is free, no cost again, and it's a way for individuals to come and learn not just about our organization and what we do. We have an amazing partnership with this community, and getting the word out is the the most important, number one priority. And whatever we can do to rally the troops, if it's us doing something but bringing everybody together, the more the merrier, because as I mentioned earlier, people need to know what it is that is available to them, and they go at this by themselves without an understanding and knowledge of the resources that are actually available to them.
So we really want, everyone in this room is aging. So we want to age well, we want to age strong, and we really want to age with resilience and connected to community. And so I've talked about our 21 senior centers. They serve as community hubs for recreational activities, but also connection to resources. We invite community-based agencies in, state reps, congressional reps. We have community police comes in, provides presentations on resources and services right within that community that are available.
Can I jump in also
Please.
with respect to community? There's so many ways to think about community, and in the Engaging Illinois, the multi-sector plan on aging, the first section, the first focus area is creating livable, connected communities. And that includes age-friendly housing, transportation, social connection, and even digital, broadband access, because I think that's critically important. But thinking about age-friendly, everyone can have a role in making your community age-friendly. Mm-hmm. And so through the multi-sector plan, we're really reaching out. We're creating a cadre of ambassadors who will work in their communities to make each of your communities more age-friendly. You don't have to invent it for yourself. There's lots of good toolkits out there that can do that, and I think it's important to recognize that community is what you make it. It doesn't have to be your physical surrounding. It could be, people define themselves a variety of different ways in the LGBTQ community or the Latin community or the Black community or any number of communities. People can identify that they are part of a church community or block club, and I think we need to really reinforce that community means a lot of different things as we age throughout our lives.
I'm so glad that you said that, because let's talk about this intergenerational component, because as you said, all of us here are aging, and that intergenerational piece, so not just the older adults, but also people who are younger, people who are less, how do we talk about how to engage at every generation, healthy aging and strong aging in our communities?
Well, I'll say as the Area Agency on Aging for the City of Chicago, we support and encourage interactions between youth and older adults. Now, our senior centers are specialized to meet the needs of our older adults, but we invite high schoolers in, we invite college students in, so there's interaction and exchange. Last year, we had a chess match between high school students and seniors. Some of the high school students were teaching seniors how to play chess, and they were learning from each other, and they were talking to each other. That younger person experienced the older adult's wisdom, and then the youth shared their experiences as well.
Terrence, I'd like you to hop in on that too.
Yeah, I would say that intergenerational component is very important. And I think one of the things that came to mind as soon as I saw this topic is we have Grandparents' Day sometime at my daughter's school. She's 5 years old, and I love the fact when I go to that day and I see the 5, 6, 7-year-olds, and I also see the grandparents, and it's just it just means so much, because that is an opportunity for the older adults, folks who have so much wisdom, to pour into younger generations. But I also feel like the kids may have something to contribute to, whether it's technology and that sort of thing. So I do feel like that intergenerational component is very, very important.
Thank you. And Daria, I saw you trying to jump in there.
I think most of it's been said, but I think focusing on activities.
Yes.
Don't forget sports. Sports is a great way to bring all generations together, because you can just have a family member and go sit with them and watch a game or watch whatever it is that they're interested in. We've talked about chess, dance, just bringing things to them so that everyone can enjoy it. I think that's really important. And then once the younger generation are there and around, that's when we can start sneaking in those conversations about some of these tech challenges that sometimes some of our older family members have, and that's a good time to also figure out what tech challenges they have while we're spending time with them.
I don't know about you, but that Chicago Bears season aged me about 3 years. It's like watching that all together as a family. Okay, so last question. How can neighbors, families, churches, and community centers support seniors more effectively? So what is it that we could be doing just a little bit better than what we currently have?
Well, I know we were talking about age-friendly. The other thing I also want to talk about is dementia-friendly communities. We work with the state to create dementia-friendly communities. And what that is, again, as we age and as some of our older adults are experiencing memory loss, we educate the community about what to see and how to support. And that includes the churches as well. So what are the services that are out there for caregivers? We introduce all this information into the community so that we basically are wrapping our arms around our older adults, especially those that are dealing with memory loss, so that the caregiver is able to support that older adult, but the community is able to understand what some of those challenges are and are supportive as well.
Thank you. Terrence, anything we could be doing a little bit better?
Yeah, I'll say one thing is when you think about your community and that sort of thing, they are really oftentimes the first line of defense or detection. So if a person is having issues with their mobility, maybe if I've seen a family member for many, many years and now it's harder for them to stand up for a chair, or they don't remember things as well, or if I have to repeat things 2 or 3 times, that's a early detection that could then help to proactively help that person to get care and to maybe address that situation early.
Okay. Daria. I was going to say, listen. Listening is key. If you actually take the time to listen, sometimes we pick up on what the needs are when we're talking about community and what community means, church, being aware that we haven't seen Miss So-and-so in 4 Sundays. Do we need to call and check on her? Do we need to have somebody from the church go and visit her because she's not able? Something that a patient of mine brought to my attention just this week with all this cold weather we've had. She loves her dog dearly, but she went out and almost had a very bad asthma attack because of the cold, but she was so concerned about how her dog was going to get walked. So just being able to identify what's important and how we can play a role in helping with everyday things and paying attention to what's important to them, I think will help us all help.
One of the things that we say a lot now is if you see something, say something, and that really applies to this message and to what we're trying to communicate, which is really paying close attention. And that's what community is all about, is knowing what's going on and noticing and asking questions if you notice something.
And I'll just quickly pick up on what you were saying with the church. Is neighbors checking on neighbors, yes. Right? Check on the older adults in our community, because the older adults, they check up on us, right? So we need to check up on them, make sure that they're okay, and make sure that everybody in the community knows the services and supports that are available.
Can I just add one other little thing?
Y'all on a roll.
Since we're in Snowmageddon, thinking about what our sidewalks look like. Now, when it's like this, obviously we pay attention, but just imagine how impactful snowy sidewalks are for people who use rollators, who have motorized wheelchairs. So being aware of that. And then on the flip side, in the summer, if we've got cracks in the sidewalks, uneven sidewalks, and you're seeing that in your community near someone, bringing attention to those things to the appropriate people will help.
Thank you guys so much. It's not just about a community of people, but building a culture of concern and care. And I love all of the resources that you guys have shared. Thank you so much.
So now we're going to bring the conversation to the audience who's joined us live here. Dr. Shante, you have some guests who have some questions.
I sure do. So what's your name and what's your question for our panelists?
My name is Alicia Henry. My question is, what do our seniors in our community need to know to protect their Medicare and Medicaid benefits and avoid being taken advantage of?
The Illinois Department on Aging has an adult protective services, and so they work to make sure and to address fraud and abuse of people's Medicaid, and so that is one good place to start. The AAAs also are an excellent place to check if you feel like there's something that's not quite right. They can tell you if it sounds fishy, but always just know your AAA first and foremost. The Aging Network is really very connected, and they're a great resource.
And the questions just keep coming. So what is your name and what is your question?
My name is Nancy Edwards. I'm a resident service coordinator. I work with seniors. My first question is to piggyback on the previous question. What is the AAA? A lot of seniors ask, what is the AAA?
Okay, panelists, we got a two-part question here. So the first part question is, we keep hearing AAA. What is that?
So the AAA is the Area Agency on Aging. There are 13 AAAs across this state. The Department of Family and Support Services, Senior Services, we serve as the AAA for the great city of Chicago. And every day we are laser focused on meeting the needs of older adults and caregivers. That's what we do.
And Nancy, you got a second part to that question?
Yes. My second question is, we all know when the open enrollment is. It's advertised, it's for October, whatever, to December 7th. Okay, during my years with working with seniors, we'll come across a problem with the seniors during open enrollment, they sign up for the Medicare Advantage plan. But no one ever tells them that there's an open enrollment, they can change out of it. So they're stuck the whole year with something they don't want because they don't know they have until March 31st to change that plan. So how do we get that out to the seniors?
Panelists, how do we get that message out to the seniors that they have more time to change their options?
We've talked a lot about community, so that I think that is the first answer. So when you are talking to people at church, in the senior centers, wherever we are, wherever we're meeting and seeing each other, at the beauty shop, whatever it takes to get that message out, because that's probably going to be the most effective thing. Obviously, we can continue to encourage people to have open discussions about whether the new arrangements are working for them. But the more that we can effectively spread that message through our own networking, I think is probably the most effective thing, I think.
And what I'll say is what we try to do, leading into open enrollment, is to do presentations. We go into churches, we go into communities, and we try to point out some of the challenges and some of the strategies in terms of how to get the best out of that open enrollment. And again, those SHIP counselors that we talked about, they're crucial and they're extremely helpful because, as you're pointing out, it's very complicated. And these decisions that we're making with respect to how to access health care is important.
And we have more questions for our panelists. Sir, what is your name and what is your question for our panelists?
My name is Ricky Lucas. I'm from Taunton Manor, and I'm a part of the senior committee over there. And my question is, what help is available to fix up homes, pay utility, or get in home care so seniors can age safely?
Panelists?
So I'll share. The city does have a home modification program, but I will say the need is so great that the demand, it really exceeds the capacity right now. But we do know the importance of home repairs, home modifications, and we do have some city-sponsored programming. Unfortunately, there is a wait list with respect to those services, but I know everyone is engaged in conversations about how we can try to expand access to those much-needed services.
And I'll just do a plug for the Center for Better Aging here, because our goal really is to be the connector to the resources that exist, or the creator of those that don't yet exist for solutions like this. And so if you are in need of support, certainly seek out centerforbetteraging.org. Our team includes a social worker who can help you navigate to things like utility assistance, home repairs, and we're also launching a new initiative for home modifications and home repairs in 2026. So please stay tuned as well. But there are other organizations. I know we partner with an organization called Home, H-O-M-E, that also does home repairs and modifications. But again, a long wait and a long list, and mostly prioritized based on need. Thank you.
There are also a number of programs through the state of Illinois that do come through the area agencies on aging and some of the other organizations. But one thing I really, since you're a leader in your community, one thing I would encourage you to do is call your legislators and let them know that this is a serious issue, and support all of the legislation that is moving forward, or encourage legislation related to making sure that at the federal level and at the state level and the city level that there are more resources flowing, because we got to keep people in their in their homes or in their communities. And a great way to do that is home modifications. It's so much less expensive and better, most importantly, better for people if they can stay in their community than going to a nursing home, for example. That's not a good answer. Better to keep people at home. So I encourage lifting up your voice and letting your voice be heard.
And I also would like to share, CETA is a great partner as well with respect to utilities. So.
And we have another question here from our audience. What is your name and what is your question?
My name is Rosetta Collins, and I'm from Mercy Housing, Roseland Place. And my question is, what mental health support exists for older adults who don't have insurance or can afford to pay for therapy?
What types of resources are available for older adults who don't have insurance and can't afford to pay for therapy?
So I will just say, with the city, we have our CDPH, the Department of Public Health. So there are mental health zones in which you can go into those clinics and receive support. So for instance, I know there's one in Roseland. I mean, they're located in different communities across the city. I can get your name and your number, and I can help connect you to those resources, but they are available.
All right, thank you so much.
As we wrap up tonight's community conversation, I want to look ahead. What will aging look like in Chicago 10, 20 years from now? And what must we do now to build a city where everyone at every age can thrive? So I love that we're ending this conversation talking about the future, talking about what's possible. And I like to say that the Center for Better Aging is leading the effort to redefine aging on Chicago's South Side. We're just one example of many of the innovative approaches that are taking place across the state, across the city, across the nation. And so I'd love to end with that conversation, kind of what excites you about what's possible and what's happening in the future of this city. So when you think about this space, aging, what innovations or approaches give you the most optimism about the future of aging in Chicago? I'm going to start with you, Margaret.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I say one of the innovations, and it was a lesson learned from COVID, was virtual. And the ability to provide classes, services, and support in the comfort of someone's home, as well as outside of the home through our senior centers. And hybrid classes as well. We want to reach people where they are. We know that our caregivers have a hard time getting outside of the home sometimes. So we want to provide that education and training. We want to make it accessible in the home while they're caring for their loved ones, and then give them an opportunity to get outside of the home. Same thing with our seniors. We know some of our seniors are less mobile than others. So it's really reaching people where they are to get them the services and supports that they need.
Dr. Wallace, you are at the intersection of health and technology. What excites you about innovations and these new approaches?
Yeah, I think, well, one,
thing that keeps me optimistic is I feel like there's a much greater emphasis on health and wellness just in general. I feel like whether it's in media or people that I see on the street, I feel like people are more health conscious. And one of the things that just personally excites me is when I see older adults just living and thriving. I see so many people who are active, they walk well, they exercise and that sort of thing. So the fact that just that health and wellness mindset is more prevalent is something that excites me about.
Wonderful. And now let's shift to policy, right? How we can actually change this at the system level. What policy or systems changes are most critical to really reach that future state where we can support older adults in the years ahead? I'll start with you, Michelle.
There's so many policy changes. I'm going to start with more of a reframing a paradigm, if you don't mind. In fact, it's called reframing aging. It's looking beyond older adults from frailty and need to all of what they can give back and what the value that they have in our society. So from a policy perspective, I think there should be a perspective that everyone, whatever you're doing, thinks about how does this impact aging in all policies. So if you're designing a building, how do you design it so it's age friendly? If you're designing a policy on healthcare, how do aging individuals fit into that perspective? And so yes, from a policy perspective, aging first. Think about how every policy you're engaged in impacts aging.
I love that. And if we're blessed, right, we all have the opportunity to age. That's what we would hope to achieve. Dr. Terrell, as the Center for Better Aging's Executive Medical Director, what do partnerships like the Center for Better Aging, how do they help strengthen what's possible for older adults?
I think the beauty of partnerships like this is it's the realization that quality healthcare is expensive. And so if we all work together, it makes it a lot more feasible and a lot more effective. One, because we're not trying to take as big of a burden on, but also because we're each able to do what we're really good at and bring everybody's best together to give the best resources to our population. So that's what excites me.
And I also want to talk about quality of life. It's so important. We want to age well, we want to age strong, we want to experience a good, healthy, quality, enjoyable quality of life for the older adults that are aging throughout Chicago, and also for the caregivers that support them. And I think these partnerships help to do that.
Thank you. And I will say it's wonderful that each and every one of these panelists are a partner of the Center for Better Aging. So I thank you not only for your time in participating in this conversation, but for leaning into innovative models where we can all solution together. And so I'm excited, and I hope you all are, about the future of aging and the future of healthcare in the city of Chicago.
Tonight's conversation makes one thing clear. Aging is not just a personal journey, it's a community responsibility. When older adults have the tools, support, and care they need, the entire city becomes stronger.
The Center for Better Aging remains committed to standing with our community, advocating for every Chicagoan's right to age with grace, dignity, and good health. Thank you, panelists, audience, and each of you watching from home for this important conversation. On behalf of the CBA and CAN-TV teams and my fantastic co-host, Dr. Shante Holly, thank you for watching State of Aging, a community conversation. Good night and good health.